I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook babies.
Hello,
All
my
right, Ben.
friend.
Huh? Hello,
Friend. Hello, my
boss.
friend.
Boss, how you doing, boss? What can I do for you
Oh.
today, boss?
Oh, so you're doing more like
Lebanese,
Oh,
like
you
deli
do-
guy. Like,
oh, were you?
yeah.
I thought you were doing more like Chicano. Do it
No. You know when you get like, we go to like a little like restaurant or
Friend.
something. Like,
Yeah.
no, boss. What can I do for you,
Yeah.
boss?
I was doing more like Moroccan rug vendor.
Oh, nice.
My friend, come in.
I like we're going for the
Sorry,
non-obvious
my cat's being-
ethnicities.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
We're obscure. We're erudite, really.
We're not gonna do. Let's not do Chinese.
Not Chinese. We're not doing AAVE or whatever.
What's AAVE? Oh,
African American vernacular English.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we care about representation, so let's make fun of no.
Yeah. Yeah, let's make fun of Middle Easterners because they're always the most level-headed.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our first topic. Salman Rushdie.
Yeah, let's just Rushdie right into it.
Let's Rushdie. Yeah. He's had a few issues with some Muslims.
Yeah, he has. He's not the kind of guy to turn a blind eye to that sort of thing.
Oh, come on. Come on. No, disavow. I disavow that.
Well, hey, here, I will say this though. Did you see how Rushdie referred to that guy who stabbed him and tried to kill him?
No.
So just super quick recap. So Rushdie is promoting a book because it was like a year and a half ago that he was giving a talk, and then some crazy extremist guy jumped on stage and attacked him with a knife. And did he lose an eye or did he just lose?
I think for all intents and purposes he lost it.
But anyway, so Rushdie wrote a book about the incident and the fallout of it. It's called Knife, and he since that he referred to it. This is from Ricky Schlott on Twitter. She said Salman Rushdie describing his attacker as the man who failed to kill an unarmed 75-year-old writer is so characteristically badass.
That's really good. That's really good. Yeah. So first, I want to come out and say that I disavow the attacker, not just because he's a psychotic Muslim, but because he's a New Jerseyan, and disavow. We're not for that in the great state of New Jersey. So I just want to put that on the record so that if anyone asks why I didn't disavow him earlier.
Good. That's very principled of you, man.
Yeah. Trying to stay ahead of the curve.
I know. I know New Jersey is kind of like a den of libertines and degenerates, but so I'm glad that you're finally put your foot down. And
but we have our principles.
Yes. Yeah. So we've mentioned Rushdie on the show before. He's a great fighter for freedom of speech. He's got that quote that we've put out before. It's like something along the lines of, if I can't remember, but anyway, so it's.
An effort was made. Fucking move on. Look it up. Take our word for it.
No, I
actually can't remember it either. But we do a lot of free speech quotes.
But I actually have it right here. Okay. What is freedom of expression? Without the freedom to offend, it ceases to exist. So he's gotten in trouble from the Satanic Verses, which was published in 1988.
Yeah, have you read it?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, I have. I have it on my bookshelf over there. I don't remember. Then I'm not a Muslim, but I don't remember what was so bad about it. I thought it was like up until very, very recently. I thought the whole thing was more just like Muhammad was fucking children. I thought that was the thing, which I think is disputed. I don't know, and I don't really care enough right now. Like you'll see people say, like, yeah, he was banging 9-year-olds and it was bad. Yeah, he was banging 9-year-olds, but that's what you did at the time. Or no, that's like mistranslations. His wives were actually closer to like, 15 to 18 or something like that. Like, I don't know. I don't want to start getting into the ages of, rape victims, so to speak, or whatever. But that's what I always thought it was based off of. it was actually more of like I don't know if it's and again, don't quote me on this, why Satanic Verses is controversial, but I was looking into it right before the episode. It's like where it comes from was that these pagan goddesses were speaking to Muhammad, and he like was and like took that as God instead of, you know, because obviously that was a big deal in pre-Islamic Arabia, was monotheism versus paganism. Obviously Islam being monotheistic, like very, very much so. And like that, like the fallibility of Muhammad or something like that. But then like Muslims say that happened and some don't. It's all fucking interpretation and scripture and shit that happened 1,200 years ago. Like, yeah, it's like there's like the 500s, early 600s. Like, so I don't know exactly, but that's more of what it was about. And maybe I went into it. I think I read it like 2015, 2016, like around that time. But I do have it.
Dude, I knew that he basically had like a target on his head since then from like there was a fatwa placed on him. So multiple people have tried to kill him. But here's the thing, it actually caused a lot more violence. Hitoshi Igarashi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was Rushdie's Japanese translator, was found dead by a cleaning lady, stabbed to death in his office in the University of Tsukuba in 1991. So he was the one who was translating it, and he was assassinated. Rushdie's Italian translator, Ettore Capriolo, was seriously injured by an attacker at his home in Milan by being stabbed multiple times in 1991. William Nygaard, the Norwegian publisher of the Satanic Verses, was critically injured by being shot 3 times in the back by an assailant in 1993 in Oslo. Nygaard survived, but spent months in the hospital recovering. The book's Turkish translator, Aziz Neeson, was the intended target of a mob of arsonists who set fire to a hotel after Friday prayers in July 1993 in Turkey, killing 37 people. This book is crazy.
Well, these people are sick. Like it's, to me, and like I don't know, they're like fucking troglodytes, like whatever. Again, no defense of them whatsoever, but I'm more sick with like the Westerners who defend it. Especially like progressives. You know, I think that's all. Like, I don't know if there are any, I don't know, Christian or Jewish or like conservative Westerners who defend the attacks on him, but it's like the progressives who defend the censorship and or the violence, or I think maybe very few are okay with the outright violence, but they also don't condemn it. They say it's more of like, I don't know, cultural relativism and that kind of bullshit. These are the same people who defend like female genital mutilation and honor killings and blindings and acid attacks and that shit, because it's like cultural relativism. And these are the dumbest people on the planet, of some of the most power in our educational institutions.
No, I was reading a little bit about the controversy as well, and in the UK, like there were several politicians, you know, who were very light on Rushdie's attackers. We're like, yeah, what they did was bad, but you know, at the same time, you know, he kind of had it coming. Where it's like,
it's so sick to me. I know it is. It's so insane, and
the book was offensive. Let's be real here. It's like, no.
And I feel he was so. I was reading again right before this the quotes from him, and he was like, I thought a few mullahs are like, you know, religious leaders in Islam. I don't know their exact title, but I thought a few mullahs would be mad at me and call me names and say shit from their pulpit, and I would then have the chance to defend myself. And that was it. Like, I did not expect. So he was very naive to this. And remember, this was the late 80s, early 90s. This was even before like the Tanzania, Kenya bombings in the late 90s. This was, it was after the Iranian Revolution, obviously. But a lot of that was, I feel like, a lot more political, even though it was the Islamic Revolution, of course. I felt like that was a lot more like geopolitical, cultural revolution type stuff, and not this sort of extensive ISIS type attacks, Al-Qaeda type attacks in Western lands. That was more ideological. So I understand his naivety, because one, he's not writing this from he's Indian, like Indian British. I actually don't know.
Yeah.
So he's not even in India, which like, yeah, India, Islam is a minority, but India still, people don't realize India is the second largest Muslim country in the world. Not that I think Islam like makes up less than 15%. Muslim make up less than 15%. But that's just how big India is.
Yeah.
It's just a gigantic country where they're Christians. There's a lot of Christians and obviously Hindus and Muslims. Like everyone is. There's a lot of them because there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Same with China. So it's not even like he was writing it from there. Like he's writing this from London, I'm assuming, somewhere in the UK.
Yeah.
And it's just shocking that like his. I mean, I think he'd be I'd be less sympathetic to his naivety if it was like, oh, I'm surprised I can't go to Saudi Arabia now. Like, I think he understood that. Like, you write this book, you're not going to some countries anymore.
Right.
But the fact that he's being attacked in places like like New York, like London, places like Oslo and Paris, like I think that was shocking for that time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so the reason why we're talking about Salman Rushdie is because he appeared recently, earlier this week, I believe,
For the first time since the attack.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
it was he was attacked in I think August 2022.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's April 2024. I did not realize this is his first like public appearance.
Yeah. And so he went on 60 Minutes with the platinum gay guy,
Anderson Cooper.
Yeah. And so he was talking about censorship.
What's platinum gay? You shrink to his hair? Or...
Yeah, I don't know. Just everything about him just looks very like silver and glimmering.
Yeah. Anderson Cooper is like a model. He's like he's a very good looking guy. He's a Vanderbilt, right?
Sounds. I guess so. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Gay royalty.
Yeah, and so he was talking about, and so there are a few quotes from that we can kind of pick apart here. Not pick apart, but unpack.
Extrapolate. Yeah. Well, so he said, it was kind of. He was saying things that it's not like I don't think Salman Rushdie was having the revelation in 2024 about this, but he was saying things that honestly people have been saying for a decade, not exaggerating. Like it used to be that it was conservatives, and it used to be that it was only the religious right that would ban books and censorship acts and even threaten people, and now it's coming from the progressive left. Like, yeah, no shit. And now I'm not saying that like, oh, he just realized that. I just think he's on 60 Minutes,
right?
And so he's saying that. And if that's new to anyone, they've just been living in a hovel of like MSNBC and CNN and like not understanding that. Yeah, actually, I would say the left is far more authoritarian in terms of censorship. Yes, there are places that go too far, I think, with some state laws.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is also misconstrued by the liberal media. Florida, like I'm not saying that they're perfect at all with their bans. I think they go too far. A lot of that is reactionary and some of it's purposeful. Fire will criticize them just as much.
Yeah.
I think others like Idaho, I think, had issues too. I think a lot of it's really poorly written laws that people who are just out of touch with these things don't actually know. They're just Republicans who hear from their constituents and then they're like, all right, ban all books that do this. It's like, no, that's not true. Right. A lot of it is aged, like the Florida things, don't say gay bill was completely misconstrued. It had to do with like children, like not even, it wasn't like high schoolers. I don't think it was middle school.
It was like fourth grade or something, wasn't it?
Like children, yes. Yeah. And people, and it's like, and of course there's no such thing as don't say gay. That's all, whatever marketing packaging by critics. So anyway, so I'm not saying that like the right is not innocent in these things either. And they're always going to be reactionary, but the left by far is the more powerful in terms of education and censorship, whether it's media, higher education, K through 12, whatever it is, in all states, in red states, in blue, like all over the country. And so like anyone who's hearing Salman Rushdie go like, oh my God, wait, the progressives are censoring people, then they just don't have a clue. But hey, the more the merrier. Right.
So there was something interesting that I noticed about, when because I wrote an article about this for Medium. When I was looking into like the history of the controversy of Salman Rushdie, and it said, and so I wrote, this needless violence was motivated not by speech, by the impulse to silence it. Like, it's not like he wrote a book and then that incited violence. It was people who were trying to prevent that book from getting published. Like, it was like
exactly. It wasn't the Turner Diaries, and it was like, do you know what Turner Diaries are?
No, what's that?
Oh, they're like I was gonna say pretty white supremacists. No, they're like blatantly white supremacist book about basically like a race war. A lot of like racist mass shooters and shit, like terrorists, like white nationalist terrorists read that. Right. So it's not like that. It's almost like a call to action in a way.
Right.
Like this was not this at all. This was a novelization of a religious figure. Right. And also it's not like he made I don't know, like 50 Shades of Grey Muhammad style. Like, it wasn't like it was like stuff that is couched in the history, whether like how it's interpreted is one thing, but it's things that even Muslims believe. I think, again, I don't know that exactly, but it's things that have a basis in scripture. In reality, so to speak. I don't know. It's not like he just made fan fiction. Is the word I'm looking for, like pornographic gay fan fiction of Muhammad. Like that's not what it was.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like he was purposely going out to instigate, just to stoke rage about this.
Isn't he a Muslim?
I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know what his specific religious views are.
Let me see.
But I have this quote from Rushdie here.
Rushdie was born to a Muslim Kashmiri family in Bombay. So I don't know if he's like a practicing Muslim, but like he's culturally, like he was born into a Muslim country. So it's like all these whiteys who are criticizing him. It's like, own voices.
Right. I got it right here in the BBC. He became a British citizen and allowed his Muslim faith to lapse.
Bummer. Oh no. Well,
anyway, I had this quote from him here where he goes, so this is from the 60 Minutes interview. There's a new kind of offense industry. Offense has become an aspect of identity politics. My view is it's very easy for a book to stop offending you. You just shut it. You don't go and stab people or blow people up.
Yeah. I mean, this book definitely had the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Not that it was, I mean, Salman Rushdie, this wasn't the book like put him on the map, I don't think. Like, I think he's also already a pretty well...
He'd won some pretty big awards before that. So
like any book he writes is going to have some sort of readership because he's an award-winning author. He's an intellectual. But it's like I wouldn't have read this book if it wasn't the controversy. I can tell you that. Yeah, I solely bought this book because of the controversy. And I think I've read one. Have you read any Rushdie?
No, I haven't.
I've read Midnight's Children too. I have that. I don't remember like anything about it though.
Wasn't he in Curb Your Enthusiasm? Wasn't he on an episode?
Well, there is a Curb with the musical. There is a Curb episode where they do a musical called Fatwa the Musical. And Larry David gets a fatwa put on him because of Fatwa the Musical.
Yeah.
I think it's the premiere of one of the newer seasons. Remember how Curb like stopped and they came back after a while?
Yeah.
I think it was a premiere of that season.
Okay.
But I don't quote me on that. Curb is something I've actually wanted to like watch start to finish.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's an episode where he meets Salman Rushdie.
So it might be that one.
Yeah,
that would make sense to me, but I don't know for certain. But there definitely is an episode where they do Fatwa the Musical, and then he gets a fatwa put on him, and it's like
it's just like that Mel Brooks.
You a fatwa on me? I got a fatwa.
It's just like that Mel Brooks movie, The Producers. You ever see that one?
Springtime for Hitler?
Yeah.
No, I've not. I don't think I've seen it start to finish. No. I know Nathan Lane was in the movie, right?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the original one, but
no.
From the late 60s.
Why? What about it?
Well, it's just the idea of taking something that's like, sort of like a serious, like offensive thing, and then like into a musical comedy.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about the producers though is that these two sleazy producers, they come up with a way to make more money from a flop than from like a hit. So what they do is they get a bunch of investors. One of the guys, he likes to seduce old ladies and get them to like invest in his productions and say, hey, like if you give me $10,000, I'll give you 12% of the profits. But he does it for like hundreds of ladies. So like he owes like 10,000% of the profits. But if the play flops, then they just keep whatever's left, and then they're like, sorry, we didn't make any money, so we don't owe you anything.
Right.
We just keep whatever's left.
I see.
So all the investment.
Hilarious.
So like, okay, let's come up with a production that's so offensive no one want to see it. Let's do a musical comedy about the Holocaust. And
but
then,
it
everybody
does
loves
really
it.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, but then everybody loves it.
Right. Yeah. Is it it's kind of like, but people love it. Do they love it because it's so bad it's good, or do they actually love it? Is it like, The Room?
Yeah.
Is it like that?
It's been a while since I watched the movie. I think they all thought like, oh my god, this is entertaining. This is wonderful. It's amazing. What a great new production. And then it's
not okay. So it's not quite that next step of like The Room. People watch it because it's so bad. Have you seen The Room?
Yeah, I've seen it.
What do you think about The Room, and like more obviously? I mean, about the whole like, I don't know, culture around it.
So I went during the peak of that, and I gotta admit, I thought.
Did you really?
Good. Yeah. So I actually went. Oh. So they shot that. The movie took place, and they shot it part of it in San Francisco. So I went to a small like little theater, like it was like a midnight screening. It was sort of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, this is back when you were up in Northern California.
Yeah, right. I think I just graduated college, so like 21 or 22 or something.
Right.
And so me and some friends, we went up there, and so like the guy, like the Tommy Wiseau,
yeah,
he was there, and so he's presenting the movie.
Really?
Yeah. So
I didn't know this.
Yeah, and then the guy who plays Mark, his friend, was there.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. So they were both there. They're presenting this little screening of it. So it was actually a pretty wild experience. It's fun.
So I listened to this podcast, and when I say I listen to this podcast, I've listened to a couple episodes, and I don't love it. Not because I don't like the hosts or what they talk about. It's their setup. I can't stand. It's too many live shows, and I don't love live shows for podcasts. Not that we shouldn't do one day, but because other people like them. But and it's too disjointed. But they did a really good episode. So by the way, the podcast is called "How Did This Get Made?"
Right.
So Paul Scheer is one of the co-hosts, and I always forget his name, Greek name, the guy from The League, Raffi. He's been in a bunch of other stuff too. But you know who I'm talking about? Like dark skin, beard.
Jason Mazzucas or something
yes,
like that?
Yes.
Yeah, that guy.
So them, and they talk about like bad movies, and so it's how did this get made. And they did a good episode with Mark, that actor, and just giving like all the details about it, how insane it was, like how it's thing after thing. Like part of it, you're saying like it was shot in San Francisco. Yeah, you know that I learned that. You know the famous rooftop scenes where that was shot with a green screen.
Yeah,
it's like we had rooftops. Why didn't we just go up to a rooftop? It made no sense. Like
and it was shot badly too. So like when you watch like the background shift, so it's like right when it cuts to Tommy Wiseau in the background, you see like a building and a tree, and it cuts to Mark, and it cuts back to him, and it's like a different background. So it's like there's just like no continuity.
No sense. And they were so like, I'm not going to go into this whole thing. We're getting kind of off topic, but it's like he would just randomly start throwing footballs around because he loved American culture. Just thought that's what we did. Like randomly just throw a football, but he didn't know how to throw it. And it'd just be like people would like join this scene, say their life, like walk out. You're my favorite customer. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, it was such it's such a bizarre like understanding of like how Americans. And then did you notice this too, where it's like so in Wiseau's in his apartment in the movie, he's got like little picture frames. But you know, it's like it's like utensils and shit. So at the screen, it's like again sort of like a modern day like
Rocky Horror Picture.
So people bring plastic spoons and knives and throw them at the screen whenever there's that scene shows up in the background. So it's
I get that. I get the community aspect to it, and I do like that stuff because as like I don't like being in communities or around people very often, but I appreciate it for what it is in culture. Sure. Because people have said like people who are experts on this movie, that exists. They're like, I get asked, should I go see this at one of these screenings? And I say to them, absolutely not. Like everyone's saying the lines. You have no idea what's going on. It's already a bizarre movie. You have people throwing things at the screen, like in the aisles and stuff. So like absolutely do not go see it for the first time. Live with the screenings. Go later, like to be part of that. But so I do appreciate that because I love the kind of lore and culture around Rocky Horror Picture Show. I've listened to
all the inside
podcasts
jokes and the references.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think I just like weird, campy horror shit. Like I think that's fun.
Yeah.
And that's like an early one. And I think Tim Curry is just one of the absolute best. Like I love Tim Curry. He's incredible. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, but that movie, I don't know how we got on this, but that movie is hilarious. But I think more of the talks around it. And did you watch The Disaster Artist?
No, I'm dying to though. I really
it's
want
pretty
to
good. Yeah, it's cool because it's both Francos. Like it's James and
his brother.
Yeah, and his brother. Whatever, I forget it. He's great though. Like he plays Mark and James Franco plays Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah.
But anyway, how did we get on this from Salman Rushdie?
Because I thought it was his favorite movie. I thought he said, like,
yeah.
I thought that's why the guy attacked him.
Right. It's like that movie sucks. Allah Akbar.
But yeah, thank you, Salman Rushdie.
We do love it. In all seriousness, like he rules. He was one of the first names. He might be actually the first name on that Harper's letter that came out. I've talked about this a ton on this show. Yeah. That was like a breath of fresh air to me. I was starting to wonder, am I taking crazy pills? And then that came out. I was like, okay, no, people are just afraid right now. The culture is as toxic as it's ever been and insane. And he was one of the early signers of that, one of the signers of that. And I think he might have been like the first name like I really recognized. So a lot of those names on there, like now I know who those people are. Like now I know who Thomas Sheridan Williams is, and I know Jesse Singal, and these people are.
J.K. Rowling is,
Well, now, I always knew her, but like her, but she was already, but so is Salman Rushdie, but like that was a big deal
too.
Who?
Matthew Iglesias. That was a surprising
Matthew
one.
Iglesias, Matthew Iglesias is fun. I like him because he pisses off everyone. Yeah, he pissed me off recently with something I tweeted at him. I forget what it was, but I follow him. I like him enough because he also pisses off everyone. He's not ideological. He's like norm core, piss everyone off.
He is, well, and also give him credit because he published a book a couple years back called "The Case for 1 Billion Americans," and I thought that was cool because he's a very progressive guy, but he's also very pro-America. He's like, hey, look, I want America to beat China. I want us to be the center of innovation. Yeah. And so he went on Ben Shapiro's show to talk about it, and they had an interesting conversation. And then so he went on Joe Rogan afterwards, and he goes, I got a lot of shit from the left for going on Ben Shapiro's show, but I'm like, I wrote a book. I want people to read it. I don't care what your political views are. So I'm like, that's cool. Like you're just willing to have conversations with people you disagree with. That's cool. So
I'll give him credit for being I didn't know he went on Rogan. I'd listen. I have heard him. Maybe it was that. But anyway, but yeah, Salman Rushdie, he's. But one, I don't think I really like J.K. Rowling. I have a lot more sympathy for her now. But I remember she said like really annoying shit about when there was all like the refugees and stuff, like Syrian and all that shit. And I was like, okay, take them in your home, like in your gigantic home, or in your probably multiple homes. Like you house them then, like that. And so I didn't have a lot of sympathy towards her, even though like I did with the whole trans shit. But I don't know, I didn't really care about her, and I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. But Salman Rushdie, I'm like, this guy is he's always kind of been a pillar of what I believe in. He's a very, very smart person. He's not he's not, again, not disparage podcasters. We're podcasters, but he's a high society type guy who does have a lot to lose by signing something like that. Right. Like I think a lot more personal feel. You always wonder, like, well, how come these people are like quietly conservatives or like quietly pro free speech? Because it sucks not get invited to the dinner party. Like it's honestly that simple. This goes. I've heard this about like Supreme Court justices. It's like John Roberts doesn't want to rule certain ways. He still wants to be invited. Like he doesn't want to be a persona non grata at the country club and shit like that.
Exactly.
Where now country clubs, a lot of them are like very liberal places where it used to be a country club conservative, but which are still are. But anyway, it's like I think sometimes we overlook like why people do certain things or don't or refrain from doing certain things. It honestly comes down to some of the most basic shit. It's like people like to feel liked and welcome. Students like to, and this goes, I think, back to being children. Children like to impress adults and be cared for and be in the good graces of adults, and students do the same thing with the professors. That's why they're overwhelmingly liberal, because professors are overwhelmingly liberal. And I don't think it's more complicated than that.
Right.
And people don't like to offend people. They don't like to be part of the out group. And that's what the Harper's Letters was. It was the fucking Declaration of Independence of an out group. It was like, no, we're against this shit. That's a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah.
That was a wild time.
Yeah.
And so to put your name on that, I give you a lot of credit, especially these people who are in mostly liberal left-wing circles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another thing too that I want to salute some for is you know, we've talked a lot about cancel culture and this recent, you know, the obsession with censorship of, like, you know, comedians and movies and songs and whatever. You know, people have been trying to kill him since 1988, and people around him. So it's like that's cancel culture at its worst in many ways, where it's like, this isn't just, hey, you're not going to be able to perform this comedy club, or hey, you know, like your book is being published somewhere else now. It's like, no, people have been trying to assassinate him for decades before you and I were even born. So it's like, and for him to still remain so level-headed and eloquent and principled for all these decades, I think that's a huge testament to his character. So
it's also, and it's like, people are trying to kill him who, and you're defending people who, like, they can't even register. And here, let me be more specific. It's like Muslims are trying to kill him, right? And the people who are defending the Muslims who are not Muslim, it's like they are anathema to everything you think.
Yeah.
Like, they are, again, like, they only care about minority rights where they're the minority. And there are countries where there are Christian minorities, Jewish minorities, like, you can't even be an atheist. In some of these countries, you get the death penalty for being an atheist. You be in prison, or at a minimum, maybe it's on the books. I don't know how enforced they are, but like, you are cast out from high society, or from society. Like, you are not welcome in public. You're not welcome with your families. Like, these are people who live a completely just distinct life from everything you believe in and everything you have fought for on the liberal side, and you defend them. Like, it's crazy to me that there's no, it's like, what, even today you see the Palestinian flag next to a gay pride flag at these protests. Like, do you not have, like, do you read a fucking book for once? It's like, these people would throw you from the highest tower. That's in the fucking Quran. Like, that's why ISIS did this shit. No, do all of them think this? No, of course not. But Hamas does. Like, these or the other group that's in Gaza, the Islamic Jihad, whatever. Like, these are the guys who, they kill Western aid workers. Like, there's an Italian guy, and I'll get off this in a second. There's an Italian guy who lived in Gaza, who like cared so much about Gaza. He wanted to. He literally devoted his life to helping Gazans. He was murdered. Jeez. He was murdered by the Islamic Jihad group, whatever they are. I forget. Not Hamas, because Hamas is more the governmental group, but like even like a fundamentalist group there. It's like they don't, and they would happily see you die. Will they kill you? I don't know, but they would be happy to see you go because you're non-binary, or because you're a infidel, whether you're religious or not. Like, you're not Muslim, and that is, and the lack of just like self-respect in that way is just like beyond me. I don't know. I just find it so disgusting. And so just like illogical. Yeah,
I'm with you there, buddy.
Thank you. Because if you weren't, we'd be canceling the show.
You'd be killing me to put a fatwa on me.
I'd put a fatwa on you. I just show up knocking. Joe, fatwa. I'm here for the fatwa.
No, I thought it was coming until tomorrow.
No, it's fatwa. We're fatwaing.
So yeah, keep it up, Rushdie. We're rooting for you, buddy.
We love him. I feel bad. He, like, oh my god, he's wearing a fucking eye patch, which like can look badass. It doesn't. It makes me feel sad.
Yeah.
He's great. I don't know. It's just, it's shock. And like, again, this wasn't a guy. And last thing, and I think we should move on. This wasn't a guy who was like lying in wait for 30 years, right? He read a handful of pages of the book. It honestly just sounds like a guy who wanted to hurt someone and found a way that was righteous to a group of people.
All right.
And then carried out his attack. He's a sick individual who, like, again, that's not an excuse. Like, ideology is part of it. I think a lot of times people do have this resistance to violence, and that's okay. And that means that, like, they might read extreme text or whatever it is, but it's like they understand that it's it's whatever, it's art or it's just words or whatever it is. but then some people, they just need that excuse, whether that's, you know, a right-wing racist shooting up a black church,
Right.
or whether it's a Muslim attacking a writer, like, and I'd be shocked. I looked into a little. Does he have a history of violence at all? Like,
I
did this
didn't
guy
look into
really
that.
just snap? I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he, but like, man, it's always the fucking same thing, right? It's like probably a what's like disaffected Muslim young man who, you know, maybe was at a strip club the day before or drinking or something, and then they just find an excuse to go hurt someone because they have nothing going on in their lives, and in this way now they're paraded around by a contingent of the population as like people know his name. I honestly, like, again, getting back to my earlier point, I think that's all it is for a lot of people. Just some people now I'm important when I wasn't before because I'm a fucking loser.
Right. Well, we are
speaking of fucking losers.
So we're going to talk about something that you guys are probably all aware of. We'll just give a quick summary of it. NPR, National Pussy Radio. They Uri, is it Uri or Uri Berliner?
Uri, I think it's Uri Berliner.
Uri Berliner. Yeah. So he was an editor there.
That actually means I am a potato.
Really?
No, I'm doing a joke.
You
didn't catch the joke. The joke is when JFK said like "Ich bin Berliner," I think that technically means I'm a potato or something, like the way it's translated. Try and keep up, Joe. Come on.
I know.
I have a lot of good references.
I know. History didn't happen until I was born. So anything before 1989, I just don't read.
That's true. Well, you are a millennial, so
that's true. Yeah. But anyway, Uri Berliner was an editor at NPR for about 25 years, and he wrote an article while still working for them for the Free Press, which is Barry Weiss's publication, and he was criticizing it, but like in a very like gentle way. Like it was just sort of like
criticizing it in a way that was like, I want this to change. I love this. Not criticizing it in like a fuck this place.
Yeah.
Like they're all, like a lot of progressives do. And then they're like, why was I fired? Because I called this a institutionally racist, misogynist place. Like, what do you mean? It's like, no, this came from a place like this used to be better. This used to be more actually diverse.
Yep.
I love it here. And I want to get back to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a great article. Go check it out at the Free Press. So that came out last week and it went viral on Twitter. And then he was suspended for 5 days.
Kind of understandably, to be honest. Like,
yeah, well, it was interesting because when that article came out, he wasn't punished at first. Like he just got a memo from the powers that be saying, hey, can you not publish this without letting us know first? And then I wonder if NPR, if they got wind of the controversy and they're like, oh, well, we got to do something. And then they suspended him for 5 days. But here's the other thing though, is that he was internally sounding the alarm bell about this stuff. Like he'd been doing this for several years saying, hey, some of these initiatives, some like, the implicit bias things and like the highly, how come we're not talking about other stories? And then, but everybody ignored him. And so it's sort of like, I definitely see their position of like, hey, like you criticize us publicly without telling us. So I definitely see from that perspective. But at the same time, it's like, well, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I didn't want to go public. I've been trying to deal with this internally, but you guys ignored me. So,
yeah, I get that too.
So it's kind of a tricky thing, but
so a lot of his main complaints were like, it became, like pretty much everywhere, all about identity politics, not actual, and the superficial diversity of things like skin color, but it was not any sort of diversity like where people came from, what schools they went to, if they even went to school, political diversity. And he breaks it down. He's like, look, NPR has always had a liberal bent, always. It's public radio that naturally did, maybe even more so back in like the, in the 80s, like Reagan era. It was like public. Yeah, of course. Like, I don't think any right wingers would even consider like have a positive view on anything public. But he said even back then, like the viewership, the readership, whatever it is, was a lot more, what was broken down like a lot more equally. Like I think 28% were Republicans, maybe 35% Democrats, others independents. Like it was not like it is today, which is like entirely not just Democrat, but like left-wing Democrat,
Hyper progressives.
Yeah, very progressive liberal.
Yeah, and so it's really sad. I don't know if you were ever a fan of NPR.
No.
Well, I was a casual fan for a bit.
Yeah.
But before 2015. But for me, it was like, oh, like they interview like classical musicians or interesting artists or authors or something. Like what I liked about NPR was that they made sort of high culture more accessible to a common person, where it's like, oh look, they're interviewing interesting people, or they're
cool.
Here's a story from a small town that I didn't know about, but it's actually a really interesting story that that's not being covered by CNN. So I can see how like a casual sort of like a blue collar worker from the Midwest would be like, oh, they actually do some cool things sometimes. They definitely kind of, I think, kind of bridge the gap between curious and like people who like people who are curious but don't know really how to get into more highbrow topics. NPR, I think, kind of did a pretty decent job for a long time of kind of bridging that divide up until 2015.
I wasn't like don't get me wrong, I don't say no, I never was into them because wasn't politically I wasn't politically on their side. I absolutely was at one point. They just weren't in my rotation. I read a lot of The Atlantic. I read a lot of I feel like I read a lot of Washington Post, Huffington Post. Like The Atlantic was definitely my go-to for a while. So it wasn't politically. I don't know. I'm sure I did here and there. I probably read a lot more of The Guardian, which just feels like a British version of NPR in a way, right? And so that's all. But I do remember, I wanted to share a quick anecdote. Right around the George Floyd Great Awakening, all of that, a friend sent me a pod, and I was trying to be open-minded for a while. I was like, I went to a Black Lives Matter thing. It wasn't a protest, but I went to a thing at the park nearby, and it just had people, the typical shit. It was like people yelling about stuff and an airing of grievances. And one of the guys there, he ended up running for Congress.
Really?
I mean, he got smoked, but he was like the progressive Democrat. There was the Democrat, the progressive Democrat, and the Republican that's pretty much dominated in this area. But he ran for he was on the ballot the last in the midterms. So anyway, actually, coincidentally, another one, the Democrat who ran in 2020 was a Kennedy. She married into it, but she has the name, she's a Kennedy. I think they're Irish Catholics. There's a million of them, but she's one of them. And she got smoked though. And what's funny, and I was probably one of 3 people who watched the debate between Van Drews, my congressman, and her. And a lot of the shit, they're just like, oh yeah, no, I agree with my adversary. A lot of it's the same. They all agree. It's the same shit. So anyway, but so I was open to it, and my friend sent me a podcast, NPR podcast, and I'm like, okay, I'll give this a listen. And the first fucking thing they say, they go, we can just agree that systematic racism is a thing, right? And they're like, yeah. And okay. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on. Wait, hold on. We're just gonna see that. Let's talk that out. I want to see what do you mean by that? And this was again summer 2020, so it's a little more okay, these terms are not thrown around. I want to it was oh, that's where we're starting. And I stopped. I listened to 2 minutes of it, and I was like, okay, I tried. I gave it a shot.
Yeah, I think it was around 2015, 2016, where they took a sharp leftward turn. I just want to read a couple paragraphs from this, where Berliner outlines some of the crazy programs that are being instituted, and these are things that are popping up everywhere in universities and major corporations and things. Race and identity became paramount in nearly every aspect of the workplace. Journalists were required to ask everyone we interviewed their race, gender, and ethnicity, among other questions, and had to enter it into a centralized tracking system. We were given unconscious bias training, which doesn't work. A growing DEI staff offered regular meetings imploring us to start talking about race. Monthly dialogues were offered for women of color and men of color. Non-binary people of color were included too. These initiatives were bolstered by a $1 million grant from the NPR Foundation, came from management, blah, blah, blah. And then this is hilarious. Most visible was a burgeoning number of employee resource or affinity groups based on identity. They included the MGI POC, which stands for Marginalized Genders and Intersex People of Color Mentorship Program. Mi Gente, which is Latinx employees at NPR. NPR Noir, Black employees at NPR. Southwest Asians and North Africans at NPR. UMA for Muslim identifying employees, women, gender expansive, oh, Jesus Christ, and transgender people in technology throughout public media. That's one name. And transgender people and technology throughout public media. Kever, which is the Jewish Heritage and Culture in NPR, and NPR Pride, LGBTQ. So it's just like it's like the most segregated workforce ever. Like, what the hell, man? Like,
Yeah, how can like dividing people like that is only going to cause it? How do people in positions of like decision making and power not see that?
no.
Then you start just constantly dividing people. Like, it's going to lead to two things. Groups are going to disagree about things and go after each other. It's like, I'm sure the Ummah group and the Jewish group, like, maybe they're all on the same page with what's going on in Israel, Palestine, but like I don't know, like coalesce around a mission.
Ball.
A mission of like I don't know, journalism, like quality journalism, reaching as many Americans as possible.
Right.
Like I don't see how, but to me that's so self-evident.
Yeah.
And just as someone who is a big like advocate, literally in a union leader, like just from that basic labor standpoint, you don't want to divide people like that. Maybe I'm answering my own question here. It's why people in position of power do this. It's because it's divide and conquer, and that makes it much easier. But it's like, no, journalists, lawyers, conveyor belt work, like whatever it is, auto manufacturer, like you want to like strengthen numbers, and you want to have simple goals and missions that promote things that then from there it's like workplace environment. And but again, then they would say, well, they're institutionally racist. Well, then that's just a non-starter. Like if you say NPR is this is a workplace issue because it's, you know, institutionally racist or misogynist or whatever, then I don't know, then you're screwed because it's just a virus that takes root, and then this sort of shit happens. And what bothers me is that like the market should fix this. Like it did with Vice. Like Vice went down this route. And the Fifth Column has become one of my favorite podcasts. I'm going to put $1 in the, you know, I don't agree with everything they say jar, but you know, I don't agree with everything they say. But Michael Moynihan worked at Vice for years, and Vice used to be so interesting. It was like they were talking to people no one else was talking to. They were going to like corners of like subcultures and pockets of the world and really cool shit. And they just started doing the same, like how to know if your cereal's racist articles, and they dissolved. Like honestly, because everyone's doing that shit and it's boring and no one cares. People want to hear you talk to like the members of this terrorist group and figure out why they're doing this, or they want to see like cool, you know, soccer hooligan rivalries that have a deeper meaning to this old like iron city in northern and steel manufacturing city in northern England or something like that. Like that's cool. People like that shit. They don't want this same kind of banal bullshit. And now the problem with NPR is that it is partially publicly funded. Do you know how much of it is public and how much not? I mean, the P is a third of the fucking acronym, so I would think it's a good amount. But then I've heard it's like actually not that much.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. Well, it's interesting, and because Berliner, he has written saying like, you know, even, you know, after he was suspended and he was giving some interviews to like CNN and some other places, he was still saying like, we should not defund NPR. I want them to course correct because I think that they still have a lot of value. If I was him, I'd be like, yeah, fuck this place. like tax dollars should not be going to this. Put that money towards education or something.
It really shouldn't. Like, I'm not just saying that because I'm not a person who's like the free market fixes everything. I actually don't believe that. I'm not like I'm a true believer. I do believe in capitalism, but I also don't think we have a capitalist society. I think we have a cronyist society and oligarchy. So like, again, I think you have to fight with like, sure, libertarians, they'll be like, libertarians love to argue things that's like, okay, but that's not reality. Like, that's not how it works. This is how it actually works. These companies are corrupt. There's government handouts. There's bailouts. It's not a true free market in many instances. So here it's like, well, if they're just going to get publicly funded, and it's not, which I do believe there should be public funding, even arts. Like I'm for that. I like I sometimes like I watch a ton of movies from other countries,
Mhm.
and a lot of times like it'll be thank you from the Spanish government for helping funding this. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I understand that then that can be a sort of hindrance to free speech, because if you're making it like you're criticizing the government, obviously you're going to be less likely to criticize a government, et cetera, et cetera. You can see where it goes from there.
Sure.
Logically. But for NPR, when it's like we literally don't have a Republican out of 87, someone, or even like a moderate or something.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you shouldn't be getting just from the pool of tax dollars from all different types of people. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine. Go start a private company. Like, go start I don't know, whatever, like the Atlantic or Jezebel or whatever it is, and have your bend. Go start. What's the one I'm trying to think of? That's like Drudge Report or what's the really shitty one that got sued?
Oh yeah, I think that was Dredge. Was it the one that was the release of Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, that wasn't Drudge. Whatever it is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like, go do that. That's fine. Write about how I think it's time we have a real talk about race, even though it's all we've been talking about forever. Since I was a kid, I feel like it's all we talked about ever was race.
Yeah.
And so that's fine, and see how you do. And there will be a contingent of, you know, West LA, San Francisco, Upper West Side liberals who will read this, and that's fine, and they'll feel good about it, and they'll support you. But don't take tax dollars for it. I don't think that's right. I think if you're going to take tax dollars, that should exist, but it should be objective reporting, which we're going to get into that, because, you know, you might be asking yourself, well, did NPR ever look in the mirror and, you know, make some changes to their leadership that would further, you know, that would reflect the correct criticisms of Uri Berliner? No, they did not. They put into the CEO. Do they say CEO?
I believe so.
A complete lunatic who is the opposite of what they should have done. So they're doubling down, which even pisses me off even more.
Yeah, Catherine Marr. So yeah, let's talk about the fallout of that. So after he was suspended, so she came on board like a couple of months ago, I think, like sometime earlier this year. Because the previous CEO was something Lansing, and he was pretty bad. But she's even worse, it seems like. And so Chris Rufo has done a great job of digging up tweets not even from like just like the last few years. So this is not like her when she was like in her like 2012 Tumblr days, her college days. Like, no, this stuff's like 2019, 2020,
Right.
21. So it's like I have a few snippets here again from Chris Rufo here. So this is one. Yeah. So she tweeted out a picture. This is from 2021. A picture of some protest signs, like some very nicely, you know, like Etsy styled protest signs. And this one, this sign says, "This is crazy." And so she took a picture of that and she goes, "I've stopped using this one because it's ableist, but I have a collection of protest signs I sometimes rotate on a chair in the background." So she has, like, you know, some protests just to remind her to resist at all times.
Oh, I was going to resist today, but then I saw that sign I got from Etsy. I guess I gotta resist. I'm resisting every day. All right. Well, I don't know if it's good for my wellness.
This is when she took when she posted towards the end of the pandemic. I don't know exactly what it is. It looks like maybe she was checking into like to get like a test or to get a vaccination. And it says, so, you know, when you go to some business, it tells you what the name of the network is, you know, for Wi-Fi, and what the password is. And this one says network. It says one medical guest. And password is he, she, they. And she tweeted a picture of that saying, "Getting a COVID test and love this little prompt of inclusion." Let's see. Oh, then Chris Rufo.
Hold on. I just want to, because I have been looking, and of course there's no like clear answer to funding for NPR.
Yeah.
But this is The Hill, and this is the time has come to fund the hopelessly biased NPR. And this was 2022. Okay. Joe Conscience and Opinion. So it does say it receives less than 1% directly from federal funding, but around 10% of its budget comes from federal, state, and local governments indirectly. So again, it's like not all money from taxes. People think it's not like a big pot and it goes. And I know I might have even described that earlier this episode, but like it's all different channels and different sources and stuff like that. But like, so I think it's safe to say around 10% comes from tax dollars, right? And we all have disagreements about where our tax dollars go. I am very upset that my tax dollars are going to fund the people who are bombing people and the people who are bombing them back. I don't like that my taxes are going towards another country where we have members of Congress calling it our border. Ukraine is not our border. I checked the map. And so we all have disagreements where our tax dollars go, and you're never gonna be happy with it, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. But this to me seems very simple, like very easy. There are lots of because like you can't privately fund Israel, like you can't, and I'm not gonna have a conversation about that right now. It's way too nuanced, and I'm sure I'd piss off everyone with my thoughts. That would not be too extreme in any way, but you can do it with this. There are lots of private media companies, you can be that, and I think a lot of people, NPR wouldn't get the criticism it does if it did just take that 10%. You don't get that anymore. You're now 100%. Change your name, obviously, because or fine, keep the name, National Private Radio, whatever. Like keep the name. But I think that's what bothers people so much, because then you would just be another Washington Post. People criticize the Washington Post, but not. It's like right to exist.
Sure, yeah.
Like you should hate it. Trust me, you should hate it. You actually don't hate it enough. Whoever you are, you don't hate these media outlets enough. Yeah, but the attack on them isn't, it's more of, well, don't read them because they lie to you, because they twist everything, because they're like, that's what it is. It's and you shouldn't subscribe to them, but that's still a choice. This is not a choice. That 10%, I don't get to choose. You don't get to choose that it goes to that. So that's what, and I think if they just got rid of that, I don't think NPR would matter. Like
exactly.
They just fall in line.
10 years ago, I would not have cared that some of my tax money was going to that. It's like, okay, well, they entertain me. They do some interesting articles. Like, all right, this is pretty cool. Pull the plug on them. But here's the thing. So Catherine Hahn, she released a statement. It's funny. So they released several statements about this, and one of them even interviewed Berliner after he was suspended. So just kind of cracks me. Hey, so how do you feel about us canning you? Just like but she released a statement on their website, and so she said, asking a question about whether we're living up to our mission should always be fair game. After all, journalism is nothing if not hard questions. Questioning whether our people are serving our mission with integrity based on little more than their recognition of their identity is profoundly disrespectful, hurtful, and demeaning. But here's the thing. I've got a few screenshots of recent articles over the last few years, and this is the type of crap that they're peddling. So one article is called "The Fellowship of the Rockers." How did we get stuck with the idea that 4 white guys make a rock band?
We talked about that like a while ago, right? Episode,
Here's one about video games. A growing number of gamers are LGBTQ+. So why is representation still lacking? Here's another one. When
I pick a fighter in Mortal Kombat, I want to know if he takes it in the ass.
Yeah. It's so important. I don't care about like power moves. I care about certain types of power moves.
Right. This is fatality. Is it just like pegging someone to death?
Is there a top or a bottom? I need to know. Here's another one. Not racist is not enough. Putting in the work to be anti-racist. Here's another one. Kim Osorio, The Source, and hip hop's overdue reckoning with misogyny noir. In Straight White Men, a play explores the reality of privilege. So it's like,
Was she penned these, or this is NPR?
This is just NPR in general.
Gotcha.
So, but like her thing is like, why are you questioning the fact that whether our the merits of our journalists? That they're out there doing dirty work. They're out there doing all like the hard stuff. But then you guys are publishing bullshit like this. So yeah, I'm going to question your obsession with identity.
I brought up Fifth Column recently, this episode, and one of the things they can actually do, they do this joke where it's like, you can find an article saying that anything is racist. Like you just do a Google search. Like I joke, like cereal is racist. Like you can do that with anything, and you will find an NPR, a Guardian, a Vice, like whatever
Fox,
it is. Like it might not. The title might not be X is racist, but it is in that orbit. It is.
I feel like any word, there's like a 90% chance within the last 5 years someone has written an article about why that. Somebody did that. Somebody did that with smiling. Okay, not smiling. Toothpaste. And you give me a noun.
White tooth. I'm gonna do stoves because I'm looking at my stove. Battle of the Racist Toothpastes. That's from 2007.
Oh wow.
Okay, so this is racist. Let me see. Hold on. But this isn't us. This is like Colgate's Black Person Toothpaste.
I found one for stoves.
A market leader in China. Colgate has announced a review of top-selling Chinese toothpaste brand Darlie, whose name translates to Black Person Toothpaste. So
I found one for stoves, dude.
What is it?
So this is a relatively this is from Connecticut Mirror, which is Connecticut's nonprofit journalism. The article is called "What We Know About Gas Stoves and Black Asthma Rates."
Oh, that's right. The whole gas thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but this came out just over a year ago in 2023. So apparently, it affects Black people more than white people.
So this I can't do that because everything that comes up is this racist too. But that's also like one that's China.
Yeah.
And that's it. So like everything that comes up is that. It's not just toothpaste in general. So everything's like, why Darlie, Colgate's review toothpaste brand after other. Yeah, okay. But that's not why toothpaste is that's why this one brand did.
It seemed obvious why that you can make toothpaste out to be racist because everyone wants white teeth. You would think that somebody would try to turn that into like a white supremacist thing.
I'm surprised there's not like, because I've even bought it before, like it's like black charcoal toothpaste that like comes from Africa or something.
Oh, interesting.
And how that would be like appropriation. He's more fun by the image. So yeah, everything that comes up is this thing. Give me a different noun real quick.
Okay.
Because the algorithm's fucked up with this for this reason.
Yeah. Coffee.
Oh, that's gonna be easy. Rooted in racism. Coffee's literally number one. Coffee's bitter origins. The unbearable whiteness of coffee. Addressing anti-blackness and specialty coffee. Racism, gender, and coffee consumption. 19th century something. Popular black. Okay. Yep. Why you drink black coffee? It's in your genes. Is that racist? Northwestern Now News. Anyway, I was gonna because that one's gonna be easy.
Yeah, well, 2 out of 3. There's.
I bet we could find people saying that toothpaste itself is racist. Be like, well, I could write this article right now. Well, the concept of brushing your teeth originated in, I don't know, Germany or Britain or something, and that then they impose their culture on cultures around the world when they would actually chew on some bark or whatever it is, or chew on a leaf, and that would clean their teeth, and that's toothpaste colonialism. Done.
I hear Vox calling.
Yeah.
About this article. Yeah, no, I am genuinely surprised that somebody has not tried to problematize white teeth. But yeah, anyway, so that's the type of crap that NPR has been putting out over the last, 8 years or so. And Catherine Marr, the new president and CEO of NPR, is very much a proponent of that crap. So Berliner was suspended for 5 days without pay, and then he resigned.
Oh, okay. I thought he was fired, but he resigned. I can't.
That was expected.
If he was surprised. Yeah, that was expected. Dude, just go right for the free press. Like,
I know that's what I'm saying.
Turning into the next beacon of actual journalism. Like, yeah, it's going to be slanted in some ways too. Like, I can't imagine that the free press has anyone sympathetic to Palestine on there. I just can't imagine it.
He released a statement on Twitter as an excerpt from his resignation letter. I am resigning from NPR, a great American institution where I have worked for 25 years. I don't support calls to defund NPR. I respect the integrity of my colleagues and wish for NPR to thrive and to do important journalism. But I cannot work in a newsroom where I am disparaged by a new CEO whose divisive views confirm the very problems at NPR I cite in my free press essay. So good, Berliner.
Dude, but why not defund them? I don't get it. Yeah. They can still exist. That's not cancel culture. That's not like why do you get public money when you're competing with all of these privately owned publications. Like why do you get it? And if you're not going to do like, I don't know, I guess anything can be slanted in a way. Anything can be like politicized. Unfortunately, that is where we are in culture.
Yeah.
But like if you're carving people up into affinity groups, if all you're writing about is racism, if you're doing the same kind of like race baiting, playing to people's lowest common denominator type articles, like why should you get that? Why should you get to do that with public funds? I don't understand that. I'm not saying that public radio like shouldn't exist, but it shouldn't exist in this capacity. And I don't think that's controversial to say at all.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be Berliner. I mean, being, just trying not to burn too many bridges, or he wants to be as graceful as possible with this. So I understand that, but no, I do agree. I'm because at first I was kind of like, yeah, maybe this will be a wake up call for them. But since they've doubled and tripled down on this, I'm like, okay, fuck you guys, pull the plug. Like,
well, what's happened is because it's about views and like, there are places that do a subscription model. And they can be more, it's like, well, people don't like what we're writing, what we're saying. They just unsubscribe. Like this is about like rage clicking, like about people spreading shit. Like, look how dumb this is. Like, no, they make money when you do that. And I do it too. Everyone does that. Like, this dumbass article that NPR put out. Like this is whatever it is. And so right now, everything plays to people's to extremes. To progressive extremes, to conservative extremes. Like it's not about like it's but unfortunately local reporting has basically died. Like it's very unfortunate. Do you live in a arguably the biggest market, one of the biggest markets. Do you even see not there are like papers? Like what are the Los Angeles publications?
They're pretty much all in Spanish. But they're the one that I read the most. And even then, it's probably like once every couple of months. I think is LA Mag. They do the occasional interesting local thing.
Is it LA? That's my question. LA Mag is about local stuff, or is that just what it's called and it sounds cool because it's?
Oh no, it's specifically LA centric.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And they wrote a pretty good measured article. Remember the Oscars thing where they were talking about like how they all like the quotas in order to be nominated for Oscars.
Yeah.
They did a pretty measured article on that where like they did not slant it. They shared both sides of it, and I thought they did a good job of even representing dissenting views on that. I'm sure that's pretty left leaning, but I thought that was just like I was surprised that they did not take a hardline stance on that issue. So I was like, all right, you guys seem okay.
Go ahead. Are there others? Like obviously there's LA Times, and we know that's a shit show. What is there? What else is there in LA?
Not much. I mean, there are definitely like a few like sort of underground type things, but even then, like they're pretty bad. They're still like there's one called I just had it. It's a very hipstery thing. It was meant to look kind of like cool and edgy, but it was still very establishment. Like every single view represented it was still like, but everybody at Facebook believes this. So this is not something cool and independent. So
I would love to like get like we have like a hyper local paper that's like the three like this area has it's called like the mainland. So it's like 3 towns that represent this, and like that's super. I don't even know how often that comes out. And I do like that because it's like, oh, here's this new restaurant opening here, or there's like that's fun, but that's not like and I don't just mean like local. I mean like it's a local paper that covers national things, like for the local for like that doesn't exist anymore. Where it's like a blend of and I shouldn't say it doesn't exist anymore, but not in the numbers it used to. Like it'd be like an LA paper that has a focus on LA stuff, but we'll still talk about like the Trump trial, or still talk about the war in Ukraine or whatever it is, but it's for the local people. It's not just what everyone else is saying. It's like for the local readership, where then we'll also have things that are going on in LA. Like we have one like the Press of AC is really what's here, and that does local stuff and also talks about other like national things too. And that's probably the only one we really have. Asbury Park Press, somewhat. That's more north, but I don't know, man. I just think so. Like reverse it, and then we'll wrap up. Reverse it. If there was a publication that had 87, I don't know, board members, whatever it is, people, and they were all Republicans. And it had a Republican hard slant, right wing, like not even a Republican, right wing, pro anti-abortion at conception, life begins at conception. The most like and it was publicly funded. That would like what to try and imagine if that was real. There would be calls for it to be funded every single day. It just wouldn't exist. And I think if people do that, it's like, no, this should be defunded.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you have to get out of here?
In a few minutes, I just want to read something real quick. So, this is probably the longest article I've ever written. It was for on Medium. It was called "The Woke Rot Runs Deep" at NPR. And so, I just kind of summarized everything, and I broke it down to like 5 parts. But I started each part with like a quote from Hunter S. Thompson from his book.
When did you write this?
Came out on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Or Wednesday. Yeah. It's a really long article, but anyway, so there's a book he wrote called "Songs of the Doomed," and like it was sort of like a semi-fictionalized account of his like early days, trying to make it as a journalist. But there's one here, one quote I want to read here. "There was no room in their complacent world for a man who despised mediocrity, who would let nothing stand in the way of truth. The great American press was a babbling joke, an empire built on cliches, a final resting place for rumor mongers and pompous boobs." And it's like that just summarized Berliner and NPR so much. And just the state of the press right now. But yeah, I think Berliner, I think he's in good company. Like join the ranks of Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi.
There are still great journalism, and I always say I love. One of the best things is like good journalism. It really is. Like I mean, there's just so much crap out there though. But like a great article, a great podcast, a journalistic podcast, a great article. Like there's nothing better. Like even that one we read on the last episode from the New Yorker. Like it can be done, even in like liberal institutions. Like it can be done where it was just giving the facts, what's going on. This person said this, and then this person denied it. And like you can do that, and it's really informative, entertaining, and like important.
Someone who's not afraid to get into the messy gray areas that are pervasive in the American existence.
And I think there's a bigger market for it than I don't know the fucking numbers, but I think there's a bigger market for it. People just like put it out there, put the story out there, this argument, that this thing that's going on in this town in Massachusetts, or what's going on in this subculture in LA, or whatever it is. Like people like that. They don't want to be preached to, and just like give us the facts, give us the players, give us the information. And I think that's really like we need more of it. And NPR has failed, and I defund NPR. Defund them. I'm for defund. I'm for defund NPR.
I mean, but I will feel bad for them if we defund them, and they have to cut back on some of those LGBTQ BIPOC monthly gatherings.
We have to consider that.
It's just segregated groups. Like it's just like segregated meetings and clubs. It's not even like it's gross. But
I don't want to I wouldn't want to be put in like an Italian American group. Ew, like I don't want to.
You guys are so oppressed though. Like I think you guys should be. I think you guys should be separated.
No, I don't want to be around any of them.
All right.
Just kidding.
Well, all right, everybody. This was the Reckless Musecast. Fight them and stay reckless.
And don't set yourself on fire.
Yeah.